Hi, welcome to SFG Cards and Craft. Today I'd like to show you how I did this card and why it came about. I have a friend that I met whilst playing a game on the internet named Misty, and our birthdays are very close together. Misty lives in Arizona and I live in Sydney, Australia, and because our birthdays are only one day apart, we can celebrate them at the same time. So here in Australia, it's my birthday today, but in Arizona, it would be Misty's birthday, which was yesterday for me. It gets confusing, I know, but with the time difference, that's just the way it works out. Okay, now what I'm actually using here, this is a stamp set by W+9 called Unforgettable. I have the stamp and the die sets for that. Just showing you there how my VersaFine Onyx Black has actually gone all hairy, and it's making the ink stick to the lid of the inside lid of the ink pad. I've never seen anyone else's with that problem. Now I would expect that it would happen if I was actually one to actually rub the ink over the stamps, but I've never done that. I only stamp on and off. So I'm not sure why that's happened. If anyone else has had that happen to them, let me know. I've just recently bought a new one, so I haven't even opened it yet. So when I come to use it next time, I'll use the new one. So see if it happens again. Okay, now I've stamped several of these cards, probably about 4 of them I would say. And this little thing that I've got in my hand here is actually Inkadinkado masking paper, and it's got a contact adhesive, contact paper on top, which is actually a see-through adhesive paper. And these scissors that I'm using, this is the first time I've actually used these. I've only just got them, and they are fabulous. If anyone's having trouble with cutting with their scissors, if it feels like it's dragging or tearing through the paper, buy yourself a set of these cutter bee scissors. They're absolutely wonderful. I've seen people use these, but I swear by them. I think they're just absolutely fabulous. The ones I've got, the previous set, Fiskars, are actually a non-stick blade on them, which is actually quite good. But they just feel like they're actually just, it's an effort to get the paper to cut. It's like it's tearing the paper rather than slicing it. Okay, now the sky. I'm actually using, to do the sky, I'm actually using the, where have I got it? My favourite thing's Mini Clouds Edge stencil, and the colour I'm using is Shaded Lilac. I thought I'd have something a little bit different. Normally I'd use a blue, but I thought I'll use the mauvey colour today. So this stencil is actually also a fairly new one for me. In the past I've always just used a stencil that I've actually made myself, cut from a cloud border that I have, but I like the idea of the smaller cloudy parts, so this is what I'm actually using this for now. I probably won't use my one ever again, not as a border anyway like this. And then just at the bottom, I don't want it to be stark white, so I just a little bit of the Shaded Lilac on there as well. Okay, putting this. Okay, I'm going to do some die cutting here. I've already painted some elephants, so I'm just going to cut them out. So I thought, well, I need to paint the one on the actual panel that I've just stamped, so there's no point in making you suffer through it twice. So I've decided to pre-colour these ones, and I'm just cutting them out. And as you can see, I've actually got a few of them painted there because I'm making more than one card. And sorry about that noise, I just bumped my microphone. And yes, and now this paper here, this is actually just a thicker watercolour paper. I just use this as a backing for my little elephant for when it's up on its action wobbler. I feel it needs something to strengthen it, otherwise it could bend. And I'm only using one per card, one per elephant, but as I'm making multiple cards, I actually cut more than one. I think I cut 3 or 4 of them, I'm not sure now. And this is actually the same paper, the thick watercolour paper, and I'm just cutting a few heart balloons out of it. Look, I might let you actually just watch the video, and I'll put some music on, and we'll just see how we go. Okay, I'll be back soon. Okay, the colours that I'm using there is, for the main elephant, is actually pumice stone, and for the ears, the little pinky colour there, that's actually worn lipstick. I just go over the elephant completely with a thin coat of the pumice stone, and then with the ears I actually colour that with a mix of the pumice stone and the worn lipstick, just to tone the colour down a little bit. It would be too bright if I just used the straight worn lipstick. And here I'm bringing in a 1/4 inch angle shader brush just to do a bit of the shading, using the same colour, pumice stone, because it's like a second coat, it does go on darker. Just loading the brush on the side only. You'll see occasionally I actually pinch the side of the brush. It's just to get a little bit there, just pinch it there, just to get a little bit of the water out, and it basically makes sure that the colour is actually only on the end of the brush where I want it, not all the way across the bristles. It's such a tiny image, this is. It's really cute. I really like the elephants. I've got a few stamp sets with elephants, and I've got another one that's on order that's it's waiting to come into the country. I think it's my favourite things one. Okay, well there's the little elephant, very quick to do. There's not much to this painting on this card. The mechanism is the main part of it, really. I might go back to the music again for a little while. Okay, what I'm doing here, this is actually the heart that I cut before. The colour I'm using is picked raspberry, and I'm just using this is actually I think a 1/2 inch or maybe a 3/8 inch flat brush, which you can use flat brushes as well for angle shade, for shading, not as angle shade, sorry, because it's not an angled brush, but as a shader. I do prefer to use the angled shader, or angled brush as a shader, but you can use the flat brush as well, which I'm using here. Now, I did think that the middle of the balloon was just a little bit too pale, so I decided to go over the whole one again, and then I redo the after I've dried it, I redo the shading again around the edges. Okay, back to the music. Hi, I'm back again. What I've got here, this is a guitar string, and a guitar string, if in case you don't know, is actually made up of 2 parts. On the outside there's like a winding, and inside there's like a solid core. All I need out of this guitar string is actually the solid core from inside. So I'm taking the winding off from the outside. All you do is you just get it started. I mean, you can use a pair of side cutters or something, just an old cheap pair, and just start the string pulling. And once you get it started, it pulls, and it pulls very easily. And when you actually cut the string, be very, very careful that these strings are extremely hard, and it will ruin your good set. So do not use them for anything that you're actually using for cutting your dies. Use an old set or a very heavy duty set to cut them with. What I've got there is just an old set, not one that I actually use normally. And I had to, as you notice there, I've had to put a bend in the end of the wire. That's to stop the wire from spinning around inside the heart, and it will stop it also from pulling out. The only problem with doing this is that you can actually see like the shadow of where it is inside when the balloon's assembled, but I think it's a small price to pay. And just lining it up, making sure that the end of the string comes out the end of the balloon, and I hold it with the reverse tweezers and put a block on it till it's dry. When I can find a block. Okay, put a block on it. Okay, now there's the balloon done on the end of his little string, and now I have to do the elephant part of it. But first of all, I need to measure where it's going to be cut. So obviously I don't want the balloon to be sticking up beyond the top of the card, so I cut it off below. And now this is the critical part. You've got to put the bend in it so that it's the same as the one inside the balloon, so that it's angled the same way, so that when it sits down on a piece of paper, it's actually sitting flat. You don't want it to have them at right angles to each other, as in one facing down and the other one facing left, or whatever. You want them both to be facing left, right, inside the balloon, inside the elephant. It doesn't matter if it's left or right, but as long as it's both that way. And that one will have to come out approximately where the tail is, because it's supposed to simulate that it's actually tied at the tail. And just using the glue. The glue I'm using is a Ranger Multi-Matte Medium. And as I said, the most difficult part of this card is actually making up the mechanism, which is the guitar string and all that sort of thing, and getting the balance right to try and get the elephant sitting there balanced properly on the little action wobbler. Just making up the sentiment at the moment. This is just Happy Birthday I'm making on a banner for the elephant to hold. Just using the Fine Black Onyx ink again. That's the only ink I've actually used as far as for stamping goes in here. And of course I use the clear embossing powder on top of that once I've actually stamped both of them. This panel that I'm using has been die cut with a die set called Cottage Cutz rectangle stitch dies. And I'll bring that out again shortly to cut the this little banner away from the big part. I don't have any dies that would do that normally, so to do the size that I wanted, so I've just done it like that. It's not that difficult. You just had to cut it twice instead of only once, that's all. The panel itself has already got the stitching all the way around, so I just needed to put the stitching onto the top part, and then it's all done all the way around. And there's the set. I've had this one for quite a long time actually. It was one of my first sets that I actually bought, but it wasn't as big as I'd hoped it would be, as in the biggest one is a lot smaller than what I wanted, so I don't use it very often, only when I'm wanting to make smaller cards or for things like this. I've used it for this sort of thing quite a few times and for cutting windows, but as far as using it to cut a card panel, I don't use normally. And just start cutting those out. And as I said before, I'm making more than one card, so while I've got the opportunity, I just cut both of them here. Looks like I really need to get myself some new cutting plates too. I get them cut at a local glass and perspex cutting place. They cut these ones specially for me. They're actually, if anyone ever wants to get any cut, they're not actually perspex, they're actually made out of a thing called Lexan. Or I think polycarbonate's the same thing as Lexan, so that's what they're made out of. They're not actually perspex. Perspex will just shatter if you actually try using the die cutting machine on it. And just using one of the brushes just to put a bit of colour on it, just use the picked raspberry on there. That brings the picked raspberry down to the bottom of the card. I mean, it's sitting on the top of the balloon, but it's a bit uneven, so I'm bringing it down to the bottom of the card and putting it on there as well. And just backing that to make it a bit heavier on the bottom, to make it thicker. It serves two purposes actually, putting this thicker cardstock in behind. It helps to strengthen the banner and the elephant and balloon, but it also helps with the balancing. And in fact, this one I had to end up putting a second thickness underneath it, but I did that after the whole thing was assembled. But it still worked out all right. I managed to do it okay. And just snipping it out. Now, when I actually came to put the little elephant on here, I actually should have moved him over a little bit more there and put him above the eye rather than above the B. It wasn't quite, I should have measured it and centered it properly, maybe measured it with a ruler and centered it properly, but look, we live and learn. And because I found that it wasn't balancing properly, you can see that he's stuck there to the elephant, and so I'm putting a second thickness underneath it just to help it sort of hold a bit, like balance a bit better. I'm having to bring my little Cutterby scissors in just to trim off a little bit there that I couldn't get with the big scissors, they kept slipping off. And the little action wobbler, I've got the mini action wobblers here, and there it is. The wobbler, I actually stuck it to the tail end of the elephant, not the middle, just to get it to balance a bit better. And there it is, complete. So look, if you like this, please subscribe and click the like button. And once again, Misty, happy birthday. And I hope you have a great day. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.